All right. So, Tracy, let's get started. Let's talk about the SPR. The headline we've got we're doing point number 3 out of order here. The commodity trader in chief missed the big trade. The White House sold off half of the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. They sold it down to levels that we last saw 40 years ago when the population of the United States was about 1/3 lower than it is right now. They did that a couple of years ago to lower the price of gas going into the midterm elections. It worked. The price of gas came down and the Democrats outperformed expectations. And then the White House came out and they said, we'll refill the SPR when crude gets down into the 70s. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think WTI, West Texas Intermediate, actually hit 69 and the White House did not refill. Now we've got WTI, West Texas Intermediate, trading in the mid to high 80s. I think high 80s now, right?
Right.
And they haven't replenished. They just canceled an intended purchase of 3 million barrels. What are your thoughts?
So, well, I've said this for a while. I said they are not going to meaningfully replenish the SPR, especially not during an election year, because that would take more barrels off the market and further exacerbate oil prices. And obviously that prediction was correct as we saw them again cancel this latest 3 million barrel SPR, which should not be shocking to the market. Now what we heard today is, people are speculating that they may further drain the SPR because we have a serious issue with Venezuela right now. We have the Venezuela 6-month oil sanction sanction relief, I should say, is expiring on April 18th. This means that we're going to have less heavy crude oil. This is going to be a huge problem because we're already seeing we have Mexico reducing their exports to the United States of heavy crude oil. And then we have the Trans Mountain Extension pipeline in Canada opening up, which will further move heavy crude oil from Canada to the US to Canada to Asia. And so US has kind of been a pickle right now, for lack of a better word. We did see the US meet secretly, I use this in quotes, last week with Venezuela, asking them basically, can you please have free and fair elections again? Maduro said, yeah, okay. And I don't see any situation with the 3 days we have left for this contract to expire that Maduro is going to suddenly have a change of heart since he hasn't in the last 6 months. So that being said, the US has a couple of choices here. Either they let it expire quietly and don't bring that much attention to the market so that oil prices don't spike on some sort of headline, or they cave and they extend the sanctions relief. So, again, the US is kind of in a pickle right now when we're talking about this. And so I bring this all up because really what this has to do is with the SPR, because the United States wanted to fill the SPR. Now this is going to make it more difficult to the SPR. And because of this Venezuela situation, people are now speculating that maybe they drain the SPR more. Now, what do I think about this? Well, as I've said since day one, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. All right. So if you think about this logically, if you drain the SPR and some geopolitical or weather-related, i.e. hurricane crisis arrives, and don't forget, we had back when Katrina happened, we had to tap the SPR because it was Louisiana, it was made oil hub, and we had to tap the SPR. So thank goodness we had oil there. So if you do not have this reserve, that makes US supply very vulnerable. And so, yes, I have heard the argument from people. The opposite side of this argument, which I will address, is that, shale is our SPR. Why do we need an SPR? We have so much in reserves in the ground. we can just produce it. Well, great. That's great. But good luck on that with declining tier 1 acreage, declining duck inventory, declining rigs, higher gas to oil ratio in the wells that we are producing right now, which means the wells are getting gassier. We're getting more light stuff that can only be used for chemical processing, not gasoline or other distillates that we need. We have energy companies focused on capital preservation. They don't want to spend more money on new wells. In fact, they're, buying acreage, as we see in these M&As right now, instead of producing more or taking their capital and expanding that to produce more. They're buying that. And then you also have an 18 to 20 month lead time if you actually want to get more production online. So if we have an emergency, we have a huge issue right now. Shale is not our SPR by any stretch of the imagination. Could you imagine if we had a serious problem like we did in the 1970s with Iran? And yes, we are a major exporter now. We're not such a big, but just for example, hypothetically speaking, and you needed to wait 18 to 24 months to get this stuff out of the ground, it's just not a logical way to go about doing things. And that's if these companies are even willing to do that. And so there's a whole host of problems. And the end result is the SPR is a national security issue, in my opinion.
Right.
Period. End of story. And that's what I have to say about the SPR.
Yeah, it's funny the way you phrased it, because I've been writing for the last 2 years that this administration is rolling the dice every year going into hurricane season, right? Every year they're rolling the dice that a hurricane doesn't take down production in the Gulf and end up in a situation where we really do need the SPR. And this also highlights, one of the things we've written about a lot is that this administration doesn't have a coherent energy policy. When you're trying to limit oil production, but you're running on hopefully lower gas prices, that's going to be a problem. Finally, great comment on the situation with Maduro. If I were him, though, and this administration said to me, hey, listen, any chance we could get you to run free and fair elections? My response might have been, sure, no problem. Just send us a few of those Dominion voting machines you guys use.
Well, exactly. And of course of course that didn't happen. All he wanted was us to say, we're going to relieve sanctions for 6 months. He's like, yeah, do whatever you want. Wink.
Yeah, right. There are no consequences, but clearly this is going to be an issue, because I think we can expect further production and transportation issues coming out of Iran in the future, because we just had the weekend that we did, which I know everybody here has followed closely. Let's move on to item number 4, and we'll go back and cover the other ones later, but we've got Tracy right now.